People are calling When Evil Lurks the scariest film of the year. But is the hype real? The Argentinian horror takes place in a small village where two brothers discover a man living amongst them who is possessed. Against everyone's wishes, they decide to help get rid of this man. But it won't be the last time they see evil. In fact, this is just the start. The tagline, "There's no point praying," is exactly the brutality that I expected from writer-director Damien Rugler, whose film Terrified holds the same original atmosphere with devilish undertones and, of course, entities. And that is well worth a watch if you have not seen it. I highly recommend it. And if you haven't seen this film as well, it might be time for a double feature. This is going to be a strange comparison, but the opening for this film reminded me a lot of The Last of Us. A soulful acoustic guitar intro with two people roaming their land in order to protect themselves. But make no mistake, this is something very different. Very dark and deliciously evil. And what starts as a slow stirring horror soon erupts into an unstoppable tale of chaos. When Evil Lurks is the story of possession in a rural community in Argentina. Not only does this film explain possession like no other, it's a visceral depiction that will leave you seeking a shower immediately. I'm not joking. If you're gonna eat while you watch this film, be careful with what snacks you choose. It's repulsive and realistic, and that is only the start. The film goes on to have some of the most horrific, jaw-dropping scenes I've ever seen. That's a huge claim, but it is true. I can see why this film has caused so much excitement and fear. Let's talk about some technical aspects. The film utilizes a lot of dramatic underscores. Violins and guitar drive this mostly, but the movie balances this with bridged silence scenes, allowing the sounds of insects at dusk and the silence of the countryside to create an uneasy feeling. The cinematography is raw with a high fade, but it remains thoughtful in its composition with some complex logistical shots, which are pretty impressive. I'm talking about the car scenes. It's really hard to shoot in such a confined space, and for a film that doesn't have a higher budget, I'm pretty impressed a lot of this film takes place in cars. The film is pure horror, but it steers away from other films right now with that kind of trendy dual tone and high contrast. And it takes itself very seriously with its shallow depth of field and use of natural light, whether that be fake or not. It looks pretty good. But the cinematography takes a backseat focus in comparison with the high tension chemistry between these actors. This film is a journey story. It takes place in a rural setting and beyond. There are so many characters involved in this narrative, allowing the audience to feel a sense of urgency as it unfolds, watching the possibility of danger. It's like looking at the bigger picture of who can be involved, and it does this in a very unique manner. And I have to say, the film truly ticks almost all the boxes. It's a complex story that is well laid out, taking the audience along as we learn the lore on the way. Focused and convicted in its intention. Unfortunately, I find a lot of films I love the premise of, they just don't know how to keep that consistency throughout the whole story. They end up having all of these messy side plots and things going on, where this film remains focused the entire time. And the more we learn about the brothers, the more we understand their relationship and care for them. The film builds up this relationship slowly with you, instead of throwing it all on you at the start with some kind of heart-tugging situation. And of course, the best part and the part you're all interested in, the film goes from evil to gruesome to truly terrifying. Somehow it's got it all. It plays on all the senses while remaining balanced as a story about a family seeking survival. And it manages to successfully link all of this together with some heart-pounding scenes. These situations and moments are things you couldn't even dream up in your wildest nightmares. Most films only get to this level of brutality by having an exaggerated over-the-top atmosphere, or being something like a subgenre film that we're all very familiar with, like a zombie film that we're expecting this kind of violence. There's a reason and a rhyme to it. But When Evil Lurks proves that you can have your cake and eat it too. It's a slow, stirring, dramatic story, haunting atmosphere, character chemistry, mystery and high tension. And of course, some of the most disturbing scenes you've seen in a horror movie to date. People are calling When Evil Lurks the scariest film of the year, and do I agree? Yeah, I do. I think it lives up to the hype. I'm actually really surprised. Not that I didn't think it would, because I know this director just has something original to say, but of course I am singing its praises. There is kind of one setback for me. I try to keep these spoiler free, so I don't want to go too much into detail, but at some point, all of this pressure that is brewing, all of this tension that is building, it needs to be let out at some point of the film, and of course that would be the climax. And although the terror is not lacking in this scene, there is a couple of characters and just the way it's put together, I did not love the climax as much as I hoped I would compared to the rest of the film. It's somehow, some of the elements of it bordered on cliche, which was really odd compared to the rest of the film, and I didn't really feel like it fit, but you'll have to see it for yourself to understand what I'm saying. I don't want to give away too much details, and I'm not saying it was awful, but it just wasn't my favorite part of the film, especially compared to the first and second act. I did like the ending, but it was just the climactic moment. I just wasn't really expecting it to be involving those kinds of characters. All up, the film really did impress, shock, disgust, and terrify me, and I was just so glad it lived up to the hype. I'm gonna give this one a personal score of 9. It's one of my favorite films I've watched this year. I'm keen to go check out his back catalog after this, because the 2 films that I've seen by him I've absolutely loved and I think are just so original. So of course, original, I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. And for scare, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. When Evil Lurks is playing in some cinemas in America right now. I'm so sad it's not playing here and I was not able to watch it at the cinema. I'm so lucky that I was able to obtain a copy, but it will be out on Shudder on the 27th of October. So get ready. I know you're gonna like this one. Get cozy, make sure you watch it at night, and just get ready. It's gross. I love the way it just talks about possession. You will too. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've seen When Evil Lurks and what you thought about it down below in the comment section. I've done a ton of videos recently, but I've also done a video that's my whole experience with Halloween Horror Nights. So getting scared in the flesh, if you want to check that out, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.